a legend in the cannabis tourism industry, and he does all kind of things himself here, and we're so happy to have him here today. Let's hear it for the one and only Brian Applegarth, everybody. Brian Applegarth.
You want the mic?
Sure. I think I'm going to stand. Can I stand up here?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
You want me to adjust for you a little bit? We can lower it.
Sure. Whoa, why not? Fancy.
Modern science.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you to ICBC, Alex Rogers, the entire team, including Talmanhouse. What a great panel. What a great program. And I'm thrilled to be here moderating the Cannabis and Marketing panel. This is all about increasing brand visibility on the global level. My name is Brian Applegarth. I'm the founder of Applegarth Intelligence, specializing in cannabis tourism, both medical and leisure. We've got a great group here today, and we're going to tackle one question. How do you effectively build a brand in cannabis today? Because in most industries, marketing is all about scale. Paid channels, platforms, performance. In cannabis, much of that doesn't work or it isn't available. So what you're left with is something quite different. You have to earn attention, you have to build trust, you have to figure out what actually creates connection without relying on usual tools. And that's where it gets interesting, because brands that are breaking through right now aren't just navigating constraints, they're building differently. So let's jump in with name, role, region, and in one sentence, what actually drives brand visibility where you operate. Our first panelist, Elizaveta Zarikova.
Thank you so much, Brian. First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming here. So, I'm Chief Marketing Officer in ICBC, and I've born in Siberia, moved to Slovenia when I was 18, right, and where I later met Alex and the team and started working for the ICBC. And you know, I always was interested in marketing, especially like for social media, and always wanted to organize events. And that happened to be that I appeared in the best industry in the world, the most freest and the most interesting industry. So, to now answer this question, I want to say that the most important thing is people. To drive brand visibility, you just need to focus on your clients, on people, right? Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's great. Elizaveta, thank you. Let's just go down the line here. Name, role, and how do you generate brand visibility?
Sure. Jack Hill, Marketing Director for Chubby Gorilla. The biggest way for us to drive growth, communication, and then also establishing trust. Every brand, every company needs it, and you have different ways to be able to get there. I'm sure with the rest of the panel, we're going to talk about that, but it's a huge thing to be able to establish that in the cannabis space.
Well said. My name is Dustin Hawksworth. I am the founder, creator, editor-at-large of Fat Nugs Magazine. We are in all 50 states in the U.S. I think we are the only nationally distributed cannabis publication that actually exists. We are an ICP, an independent cannabis publication, but we actually have writers that are all across the globe. 5 things for visibility for brands: storytelling, trust, quality, consistency, authenticity.
Nice.
John?
Hello, I'm John Shute. I'm the CEO at Puff Creative. We're a full-service creative and performance marketing agency. And for my business personally, community-driven events and SEO have really driving us home with growth.
My turn?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Hello, I'm Simón Espinosa. I came from Santiago de Chile, last country. And I founded, along with my brothers, Envola, which is today a media and cannabis platform. And I think what has actually gained the most traction for us, something measurable, is thinking about the community, building a community, an actual community. And to build a community, you need to display and offer resources. And that's something that I would like to elaborate farther on, but that's my take.
Thank you, Simón. So we have 4 segments. The first one is all about regulation as a creative driver, actually. And that's a shared reality across every market is constraint. So John, how has regulatory constraints forced you to rethink what brand building actually looks like?
You gotta hate those constraints.
Right.
That's for sure. So yeah, as a creative and branding agency, it's a really interesting thing because every single country, state, province, municipality, local government, they all have their own set of rules. And as a brand, you want to maintain being disruptive. You want to maintain being authentic. You want to maintain building trust with your target demographic. And that can be difficult to do because you might be limited on how your brand can look, how it can communicate with those audiences. And we work extremely hard with our clients, compliance officers, with their legal teams, with their executive teams to stay within those constraints, but still be able to build that authentic brand. And unlike just starting like a normal company, like a sneaker company or a kebab stand, we really have to map out not only, hey, this is what our logo and our brand messaging is within those constraints, but we map out the entire journey of that brand experience from start to finish. So what are the rules and guidelines of my logo, my packaging, my messaging? But then past that, how do we actually follow those guidelines when it comes to customer or patient acquisition, right? What are the touch points throughout that journey, and how does our brand stay within those guidelines throughout the whole way? And we take that all the way to even getting into customer and even patient retention as well. How do you get someone through the door, but how do you get them to keep coming back and build trust with that customer throughout the journey? So I would say instead of rethinking, it's made us actually think twice as hard and more creatively than we normally would for just a regular brand.
Thanks, John. Jack, what overlooked or unexpected opportunities are being created by regulation?
I think like John said, I think most brands, when they come face to face with regulations, it's a challenge. It's a burden. It's not something they want to go through. I would challenge most brands to think of it this way. There are so many companies who take years or decades to gain your trust. Regulations are an accelerated track to get there because the first one to meet those regulations instantly builds trust with a lot of people who are going to be out there in the space. So yes, you can try to fight it, but those who lean into it and adapt the fastest, whether it comes to the packaging, whether it comes to the amount of active ingredients, whether it comes to the advertising, the labeling, the logo, you need to see it as a benefit. The second benefit is it weeds out a lot of your competitors. It is the best unnatural, natural selection process you can have when it comes to marketing, because there's a lot of unscrupulous players that are out there who don't follow the guidelines. Regulations gets them out of your way and gets you right in front of the customer. So to me, I value regulations, and I think it's something that a lot more companies need to lean into.
Excellent. Elizaveta, from an event and an ecosystem perspective, how do regulations force better marketing?
So in our case, since there are so many different countries, right, like with all the different regulations, instead of just focusing on pushing ads for ICBC, we support our partners promoting their presence at ICBC. So we have different type of clients, right, like exhibitors, speakers, sponsors, attendees. And just like one example, for all of them, we create different social media graphics, right? We send them, they all post that, and the thing is, in this way, their subscribers are all their customers. Those are those people who they want to meet at ICBC, right? So while they're promoting their presence, we also bring people who they want to meet here. So that's some type of like UGC marketing. Thank you.
Excellent. And I can't help but mention the economic impact that ICBC brings to the city of Berlin. And this is part of that tourism, destination, travel marketing. That's a really important conversation of economic impact at the end of the day. Simone, what's different between emerging and more mature markets? What are you seeing?
Well, the first part is the obvious. When a regulation takes place, there are rules set up that everyone can follow or decide not to follow. It depends. And in emerging markets, rules haven't been set yet. So there's a lot to be said. It's an important process, and the fact that other countries have regulated sets precedents and also shows you what has gone wrong, which is something that we're trying to avoid. And from I guess from a marketing perspective, it's the main difference is that we don't have an industry yet. Regulation is what actually creates an industry. So what you have is mostly a repository or auxiliary market, right? It's everything else, everything but cannabis, everything but the plant, and the only thing that you can see in these markets is the first part of a process that's still getting built up. So what our role, I think, is, or how we can become a better asset in this part of the game is trying to help everyone understand what are the biggest trends for our market, and you work as an equalizer, right? Trying to translate this information and bring it to our community with education, so that whenever the times come, the learning curve is going to be shorter.
Awesome.
Does
Thank
that
you.
make sense? I hope it does.
Of course. So we're going to jump into segment 2. It's all about story, trust, relationship-driven marketing. And if traditional channels are restricted, brands have to build something deeper. So Dustin, emotion over algorithms. How has storytelling actually driven growth for you?
Storytelling hasn't really driven growth. It's been the engine of our growth. It's sort of how I began to build Fat Nugs Magazine as something real. Storytelling allowed me to focus on other people. So when you don't have money in this space, you don't have a budget to really get into your standard marketing channels, one of the best things to do is to focus on someone else, focus on others, uplift someone else's brand. And what ends up happening is sort of this cascading effect. When you talk about someone else's brand, their why, their what, their who behind everything that they do, what ends up happening is that they also share that work. And then other brands and people see that work. And the cascading effect is the FOMO, the fear of missing out. And they see these brands getting uplifted, and they want to be a part of that. So the next thing you know is you have 4, 5, 6 other brands knocking on your door and saying, hey, we want to be a part of that. And then maybe 2 or 3 of those brands want to actually come and spend a little bit of cash with you, which would be really dope. So that's kind of how the storytelling aspect of growth has really helped us here at Fat Nugs Magazine.
Awesome. Thanks, Dustin. John, what does relationship-driven marketing look like in practice?
I would say for me and for our clients, it's really just delivering on your brand promise and delivering on that promise throughout the entire customer journey. So someone's first interaction with your brand or your company might be they saw your logo on the flyer, they search for a specific product on Google and your company came up, or on an AI overview, or maybe they met you at an event. And that's their first introduction to the brand. And then throughout that journey, maybe next thing is they buy the product. And they say it's a bag of flour. They open that bag, those terpenes smack them right in the face. And every time they open that bag of your product moving forward, they get that same exact experience, that same exact feeling, that trust, that sense of safety. And past that, it's maintaining that communication with them as well. One of the biggest service that we offer, I would say, would be customer retention. And that's really what builds really strong relationships. And retaining a customer is way more affordable for folks than actually acquiring them. So if you can deliver on that brand promise throughout that whole entire customer journey and then communicate to those customers properly throughout that journey, that's really what's going to build that strong relationship with them.
Awesome. Simone, you mentioned trends. What's working with content now? and community where traditional channels are blocked?
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that we specialize on is like, of course, most of us, I'm assuming we know how restrictive can marketing be in our industry, especially, or not only because regulation, but because of the different platforms guidelines, social media where everyone is, right? So that's something that everyone wants to know. How can I project my company or my company's assets, like social media assets, in time if I don't know what's going to get striked or not, if I don't know what works or not, if I don't know if, or I even keeping up with the updates, it's a job by itself, right? So I'm gonna just like tell you what has worked for us in so far, and it's very much related with the first thing I mentioned, which is creating resources. Education is a very powerful resource where I come from because it's something that's very segmented, right? There's like a big difference between different social classes in what kind of education you access. So internet has provided a little bit of democracy in this matter. So one of the main gaps that we identified as community was the lack of education in our market. From very simple things like what different cannabinoids are, all that chemical conversation, and then towards more complex things, which is like how should we regulate, like what happened in different markets. So we identified this value in education, and now what we do as community is we provide free and hopefully high quality education. We try to make it high quality. We don't always succeed, but it's out there. And we try to put this out there and create something that actually has value by itself. We're not trying to push, we're trying to push products sometimes, and we are very open about like publicity in that content. But what you focus first is, and the question that you ask yourself first is, what is the value here? How does this improves our community? How does this make us stronger by, is it something that's useful? Is a how-to guide? And if you look at this, you will see a quick response within your own communities when the audiovisual asset that you're releasing holds value. And this also will help you to get through most of the guidelines in social media, as long as you're educating or doing parody. Comedy also works. But as long as you're educating, you can basically say anything you want, as long as it's not, too out of the line. But educational social media assets are very are a good asset for your own communities and for your own platforms, and you can work on that and project on that.
Can I say something
Please.
to add to that? So social media and cannabis, we all know, is kind of screwed up, especially on meta platforms. By the way, LinkedIn, if you're not a part of LinkedIn and in cannabis industry, you're missing out. Please get on LinkedIn and get involved. But what I have found is, in working with some lawyers who work with Meta directly, none of us are really pushing back on their T's and C's. Like, we're not doing anything illegal. Anything that they have, their boundaries have set. What I have learned is that most brands that are being shadow banned and kicked off of social media aren't actually doing anything wrong. So it took me getting in touch with a lawyer who actually works inside of Meta with Meta to learn exactly why and what's going on. And what's really going on is that they have AI scanning things. There are no people looking at your posts anymore. And if that AI thinks that you've done something wrong, you're sort of fucked. And that's just what it is. So you have to be able to get in touch with a lawyer to get your account back or to get that shadow ban removed. So there are ways to around the social media banning. You just have to know how to do that. And if anybody really wants to know, please feel free to reach out to me and I can get you in touch with the right people to get your account back and to get those shadow bans taken off, because most of us have done nothing wrong. And really, the one thing you have to worry about on social media is, as long as you are not selling anything on social media when it comes to cannabis, you're fine. You've broken no regs, no regulations at all. And that in itself will allow that lawyer to get your account back or that shadow ban released.
Thanks, Dustin. Appreciate that. Elizaveta, what marketing basics should we not forget?
I would just want to say one,
Please.
because we have such great panelists, and I just want to bring this one thing because we always notice this everywhere, many times. Clarity over complexity. Because many times it happens that to promote in cannabis industry, we always need to somehow hide the message, right? You cannot like promote directly. So while doing that, you lose the message, what exactly you want to share with people, what exactly you're saying, right? So, for example, when you go to some websites, you have so much text, to find one little thing, like you need to search for it forever, and it's important to keep it short, and we are living in this era of TikTok, of Reels, of Shorts. Everything is so quick, so much information every day. You have to learn every day something new to keep the speed, right? So people don't have time anymore to read those long texts and like to find something. You know, like to grab attention, you have to be very bright, short, clear.
Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
very important. So we're going to move on to the next segment, what people can actually do. We're going to bring this down to the ground level. Dustin, first question is for you. From nothing to national, what can someone replicate today with zero budget? Something replicable.
There's actually a bunch of stuff you can do when you don't have money. I know this from firsthand experience, a lot of it, unfortunately, throughout my life. But really, the easiest thing to do is, again, and I've kind of said this already, is to focus on others, do some storytelling, get involved with your community. That kind of stuff doesn't really cost money. Build relationships. Build your network. Those are the easiest things to do that don't really cost you money. It doesn't cost you money to uplift other people. It really doesn't. It takes time. But the uplifting part is sort of, it builds trust with everyone. When someone sees you uplifting someone, again, that sort of cascading thing that I talked about, that's what ends up happening. So focus on other people. You don't necessarily need to worry about the money that you do or don't have when you're starting a brand. It's about what you can do and really just being involved. Help others. I remember the very first thing that I did when I came into cannabis, and I saw Terpley. Some of us might be aware of Terpley, like the beer bros up there. You guys know who Terpley is, and Peter is one of the coolest people that I've ever met. I got on a call with him one day. We didn't even know each other, but I loved what he was doing. The dude is just cool. And I was like, I would love to do something for you. Can I pull together a go-to market strategy for you? And the look on his face was like, what the hell are you talking about, dude? Who are you? And so I took about a month or so, learned his business, pulled together a GTM, sent it over to him. And that was sort of the catalyst for people to start to learn who I was and what I was doing. So it's really just about getting involved. It doesn't cost money to do that.
Thanks, Dustin. Let's do kind of a fast round here, starting with Jack. What's one scrappy tactic that actually works for brand building?
I think much like what people are saying here, especially with Dustin's point, you need to get involved with the community. As soon as you get involved with the community, what they really want is education. I think a lot of the times when it comes to shows like this, yes, we're all B2B, but ultimately we touch B2C. And there's a lot of people out there who feel like we just kind of talk to ourselves about the amount of terpenes, about everything else that goes into it. But at some point, there is a person out there who wants to have an edible and they just want to know, what is the experience? Can someone just educate me on what the experience is? I have no idea what all this other data means. I just want to know, if I take this, what's going to happen? Am I going to be cool with that? So again, education at a ground level, whether you're participating in community events, whether you're helping out other brands, it's a great way to be able to do that.
John, scrappy tactic.
I honestly completely agree with everything Jack said. I would say at a global level, the most scrappy tactic you could do is a community-driven event. It's a safe way and compliant way to connect with your customer base and show who you truly are.
Simone, how about you? What's a scrappy tactic someone can do today?
We also use education. We are actually looking at global trends in education. So our references are not always people within our industry or community, but I don't know if you guys are following like the new science girl, like Cleo Abram or people like that. The biggest educational asset you can build, the best or the more your community is gonna build up on that, I would say.
Excellent. Let's go to the next segment, market evolution and blind spots. As markets mature, the question becomes, are we developing a playbook or rewriting one each time? John, where do traditional marketing frameworks still hold up and where do they break specifically?
I would say that traditional marketing frameworks still hold up in the sense of folks in the cannabis industry really can't get away from foundational principles of marketing. With the limitations and restrictions that we were talking about earlier, you can't forget the basics. Again, you want to build a great brand that's trustworthy, that's authentic. We have a beautiful opportunity in this cannabis space. Everyone in this room, everyone in the industry most likely has gotten in this for the right reasons to make an impact in the world in a positive way. And so building a great brand, building a high quality website, which is essentially the face of your brand and almost, your digital storefront. SEO, it's one of my biggest services that I offer. Such an important service because visibility online is everything. And without a great brand, without a great website, without SEO, you're going to get lost in the race of AI. It is rapidly developing. It is what the future of search is going to be. And unlike traditional SEO and marketing tactics, it's considering everything. It's considering who your brand is. Are you active in the community? Are you optimized for search? Are people talking about you? Are you delivering on your brand promise? And you can't essentially be considered by AI without the foundational principles of a company. And I think it's really easy for cannabis companies to not have those foundational principles in place because of the regulations that are in front of them. That being said, the traditional frameworks break, similar to what Dustin was saying. You can't just rely on a half-decent website and an Instagram account to run your business for most folks, because at any moment, your account can get shut down. And if you were just relying on your Instagram account to run your company, you're losing all of your direct communication with your customer base. So, owning your own data, making sure that you're completely visible online and having a direct communication line. We love email marketing. It's, highest deliverability to get direct communication with your customers. Owning your own data, owning your own lists are very important. Not just relying on third-party platforms that can essentially break is where the most risk is.
Thank you. Jack, do cannabis markets follow a repeatable playbook, or is each fundamentally different?
Yeah, I think there is a playbook that happens. I've seen it happen in California. I've seen it happen in Canada. I've also seen it happen in other countries. Some of you are probably going to be very familiar with this because you're probably going to recognize what stage you're in at that given time. First, there's an announcement about a piece of legislation, a bill that might be proposed, and there's a ton of hype, right? Because everyone sees the opportunity that's there. People who see the opportunity, investors. They come in and brands proliferate. There are hundreds of brands. That brings in competition, price compression, and now all those brands have to come down to how do we establish consistency and trust? Because it's no longer the glory days of this. So that's the pattern, but I think that savvy marketers who want to take advantage of that, they realize the details within that pattern, and that is, how does this play out in that state or country's regulation? What are the cultural differences and approach when it comes to cannabis? What is the retail structure like? All of those details change how you manipulate that playbook, that timeline that happens whenever cannabis comes into a certain area. And so again, it's just really important. Now, how you apply that, let's say to storytelling, or we talk about AI, education, makes a huge difference in that, even when it comes to the trade shows. But once you recognize what the pattern is, it's gonna be up to you, your brand, your marketing to say, okay, now that I know the key differences that are in there, how do I execute based on those smaller, more granular factors?
Thank you. Simone, what fundamentally changes when you're building a brand in an emerging market versus a more mature market?
I would say opportunity. What we've seen is that many regulated markets get quickly saturated due to the actual regulation. Sometimes it would be a regulation like Florida's regulation, which only allows certain players to be part of the game, so that immediately, sets a framework. And then when it's non-regulated, like everything is open, but at the same time, nothing is yet set. So you don't know what's going to happen afterwards and how will your brand will come out after the regulation process. So it's an interesting perspective, which in an untold story or a map that's not yet been drawn, right? So it's cool. I would say that one of the actions that has worked for me, and again, I might have a lot of biases answering that question, but I'm assuming that what worked for me could work for others. And our community grew by not actually approaching any cannabis product yet, but to build a community around what we believed that was important, which is focusing in our biggest pains as community. We're going to jail, one of the biggest subjects, and I think reciprocity in legislation should be like part of the conversation. So we took those values and they were our own values before starting the company. So basically we didn't take anything. We just project those values into our work. And I think that you can see that whenever transition happens. You can see who is actually some brand that you relate to. And I would say that a good example of that not happening is all those celebrity brands that we saw, especially in the US, right? They were like all-time celebrities, but to everyone in our community, they were newcomers, right? It's like, I don't care, I don't care, like, yeah, I know where good weed comes from, man, like, don't tell me shit. So I think that's very evident for our community, and it's something that everyone can see, and I would presume that worked for us because we never focus on that. So we're not, yeah. That was the word that I was looking at. Yes.
If I could add just one thing to that really short. What everybody on this stage is saying, I think, is really key, because you can generate content all you want to, right? Easily. I think what everyone on the stage is saying is that at some point you have to put that content into context. Whether that comes down to the cultural difference of, we don't care about the celebrities. Whether it comes to, yeah, you've got AI content, but what is it really saying individual to your brand or being community evolved? It's a really, really big difference that a lot of brands are gonna have to struggle with, because if you just have a marketing team who's just focused on generating content, you will lose. You have to be able to wrap that up and say, this is the context that I want to view it in, because sometimes you're not given a choice. AI is gonna scan that for you, scan the internet and look all over and say, here's what I think you are. And it could be oceans of difference in between what you thought it was.
All right. What's one action item this month somebody can do to elevate their brand? I know that for me, I have some video of ICBC, and I'm elevating the conversation around events and the economic impact of tourism, which includes medical tourism and leisure tourism, and is a pathway to developing partnerships with airlines, hotels, destinations. and being an educational resource, but not just for the community we talk about as a cannabis community, expanding out into the travel economy, which is an $11 trillion economy globally. And who are the brands and the farms and the packaged goods, the lounges, the event producers that are gonna be on the round table sitting alongside the established travel economy and being an educator based on who is the cannabis motivated travel audience and what motivates the destinations they visit and spend their money in. So that's one thing that I'm taking away and uplifting that narrative and that brand.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Of course. How about you, Dustin? What's one thing someone can do this month to uplift their brand coming out of ICBC?
Super simple. Do something for someone else, expect nothing in return.
Excellent. Any last comments from the panelists?
Yeah, I would just say this, and it kind of goes to your point. I mean, when people deal with my company in packaging, we understand that the business landscape is all over the place. Tariffs, regulations, everything else. Sometimes you just help out a smaller business who you know is struggling. That type of help and support goes a long way in the future of building trust and helping to grow another person's business and therefore grow your business.
I just wanted to say thank you to ICBC and to look a little maybe beyond the fact that we're all here trying to make businesses. I don't know how to conjugate that, but the fact is that this is an actual resource for many more reasons than the business, and the word networking has a strong value, right? And I think what we're doing here is very epic and pioneer, and let's not forget that, because at some point I feel that we have a little bit of a low energy crisis, like it's not as epic as it used to be, and it's hard to keep telling this story. And I think that the fact that we're gathered here together is like strong enough to be grateful, to honor our amazing jobs that we have, which this is really, really amazing for a lot of people. And we're so lucky to be here, and let's not lose that perspective. And I think for so many more reasons that business, ICBC is very special, and I'm thankful for that, and thank you for the invitation.
Yeah. Thank you, Simone. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, ICBC. Have a good day.
Let's hear it again for Brian Applegarth and all the panelists. Take a picture. Everybody stand there. Take your picture. Look cute. Fat Nugs magazine in the house. What's your name, man? Deep? What is it? Let's hear it for Peter. He's changing all the batteries. No, come on. Hey, you don't know how hard it is to be tech in today's world, man. There's batteries, there's wires, there's 50 hertz. There's all kind of knobs. Look at it. Consummate professional. Look at that. That's crazy. All right, we're going to move on to our next panel as Peter gets the batteries all changed. We've been here all day and yesterday. And don't forget, we'll be back next year.